Remember back in the winter when us singers had to worry about the dry air outside and all the colds and flus around? Remember when all we wanted was for the snow to go away? Nice! Well, once the snow melts away, it means we don't need this heavy winter coat. But with spring and summer come blooms of flowers and grasses and trees. And if you're allergic to these things and the pollen in the air, well, that means your voice is under duress once again. But it doesn't mean you have to give up singing. There's plenty you can do to relieve some of the symptoms, but let's go inside. I'll talk to you about it. Now keep in mind, I'm basically talking about airborne allergens. So that means in the spring and summer, flowers and grasses and trees and the pollen that spews into the air from them. In the fall it means ragweed and the pollen coming from that, giving people hay fever. And in the winter when we close up our homes, it usually means mold or mildew, dust mites and pet dander. All these things are best to avoid in the first place. That's always the best first step, to avoid coming down with symptoms. You can do this by making sure you eat some of the local honey, and that will help you develop an immunity to the local pollen. You can also close up in the spring and summer and close up your windows and use air conditioning with a good filtration system on it. And some people like to use a neti pot to irrigate their nasal passages constantly and keep those irritants out. This is what a neti pot looks like, and this is how you use one. Okay, so let's say despite your best efforts, you do come down with some allergic reactions, and you've got to sing. Now your best move is to vocalize rather than medicate, because medication treats the whole body, and most times the symptoms from the medication, from the antihistamines, from the Sudafeds, most times the symptoms from the medication are harder to manage when singing than the symptoms from the allergies. Here's why. Most of the allergies, as you can see in this diagram, are up above the larynx. The ears, the red itchy eyes, the sneezing and congestion, the runny nose, and the itchy and sore throat, even though that sounds like it would be in the way of singing, your throat, what they're referring to is the pharynx, this area just above the larynx. Usually that's where the postnasal drip irritates, but your larynx, where your vocal folds are, is below that. So you know from my previous videos that the signals that the brain gets as to what's in the way of your voice can often be wrong because we can't feel the vocal folds. So when you feel swelling and irritation around the larynx, it often feels like your voice is under duress. That causes us to overpush, and that's going to cause swelling. And swelling is the big enemy. Now let me give you a demonstration as to why swelling in your vocal folds is so bad for singing and speaking. Back in a previous video of mine called Hidden Vocal Issues, I discussed a layer that covers your vocal folds. It's vital to speech and singing. It's called the superficial lamina propria. And what I used was a model like this glove, this very loose-fitting, very thin glove. This glove is very much like that layer covering your vocal folds. And the most important part about that layer is how loose it is. There's a lot of lubrication underneath it, and it waves as the air, as your two vocal folds close and the air comes through the center or the glottis between the two folds, it creates ripples. And those ripples are vital for making your voice sound the way it does. Now here's what happens when things in the area get swollen. The area begins to fill up with fluid, much like this water now filling up between my fingers and the glove. And the more I fill this area with fluid, with water, what you'll notice is the area now between my finger and the glove itself is now very tight. And that's exactly what that covering on your vocal fold becomes when your folds are swollen. The fluid inside your vocal fold is causing that outer layer to be very tight. and that disrupts the vibration and creates this sound that I'm making. So when your two vocal folds close, there's no wave, there's no mucosal wave is what it's called. So what vocalizing will do, what we're wanting vocalizing to do, is to get the fluid out of that area so that those two layers can be nice and flexible again. That's key to your voice sounding the way you want it to sound. Now, thinking about the exercises, knowing that's what you're looking for, knowing that you want to de-swell your vocal folds, that immediately dismisses anything with volume or anything that you're going to shock into action. Be very gentle when you vocalize, looking to de-swell your vocal folds. I would start out with one of my previous videos, this one, called a foolproof vocal exercise. It's just a lip trill, and what that will do, what the lip trill does is hold back some air here at your lips so it creates a soothing back pressure on those vocal folds. Vibration is healthy. Vibration is good for de-swelling, getting that fluid away from that layer in your vocal folds. So ironically, high notes are very therapeutic, but we have to be very cautious when vocalizing with high notes because there's usually such a history of pushing for them, of extraneous muscle joining in. And that's only going to cause more irritation, and that means more swelling. So I want you to go back. The best vocal routine to do when you're trying to get your voice away from the symptoms of an allergy is in a previous video I've posted here. And it's just learning to sing or worried about vocal damage. It's a great little tiny low volume hum. And I want you to do that exercise first and then do this routine, which I've highlighted in a previous video called Singing with a Cold. And there's 3 parts to it. A whole long routine to help you assess what's going on with your voice. And just notice that in that routine, time is the most important element. So if you're coming down with allergic symptoms, it's so important to start vocalizing early in your day because you're going to have to be gentle about it. It's going to take a long time, but there's no reason why you can't sing through a vocal allergic reaction. So remember to vocalize every single day to assess the quality of your voice. The seasons change, and no sooner do you get used to this beautiful summer weather, and the seasons change again. It's time to dig out the winter coat. I'm Mark Baxter for Lesson.com.